I first heard of the idea of creating a leadership user's manual when I read an article by Adam Bryant in the New York Times called "Wanna Know Me? Just Read My User Manual." Bryant interviewed a CEO who said he created a one-page user manual so his team would know how to best work with him. I immediately loved this idea. We all have different personalities, different communication styles and habits, and even quirks. Rather than struggling through our differences, what if we tried to share it all up front? To create my own user manual, I started by thinking about the design. Most of the other leadership user manuals I found online were simple text documents, which is fine. The most important thing is the information in it. But I tried to add a touch of humor, and I thought I would try to mimic the user manuals that come with actual appliances. So I Googled manuals for refrigerators and dishwashers, and I used their layout, their design, as inspiration. Now, I'm not a graphic designer, so I just did the best I could using PowerPoint. Most appliance user manuals have an illustration of the appliance with numbers and lines pointing to its different components. To achieve that look, I found a free tool online to turn a photograph of me into line art. I added some numbered elements and used a simple Arial font throughout. Where most other user manuals have a section on do's and don'ts, I stuck with the appliance manual theme and used danger symbols to round out the look. I titled my document User's Manual Kevin Kruse Model 5.1 as a joking reference to my age of 51. But then it occurred to me that it would be a good exercise to update the manual each year. After the basic design, it was time to add my personality traits. Most people creating a user manual just reflect on their strengths and weaknesses, likes and dislikes, and some quirks that they have some self-awareness of. In my case, over the last 30 years, I've been poked and prodded a dozen different ways. So in trying to be as authentic as possible, I decided to use the third-party objective data, which is probably more valid than my own self-awareness. I had data from MBTI, the Big Five personality profile, Insights Discovery, and Clifton Strengths Finder. I also felt it was important to include my personal mission statement. My 10-year mission is to spark 100 million leaders around the world. Now, not everyone has a personal mission, but I think understanding your boss's deeper motivation or long-term goal can truly help you to understand why they do the things they do. When it comes to strengths and weaknesses, there's an inherent problem in that most of us have very low self-awareness. Do you just think you know what your weakness is, or is there some level of objectivity to it? In my case, I just lifted the verbatim descriptions from those personality assessments I had taken. If you don't have this information, you might look back at the comments from your prior annual reviews, or maybe just ask 5 friends or colleagues who you trust to give you some real feedback. Next, I wrote some notes on my preferred work style. Now, this is probably the most helpful thing you can share with your team members. Are you a morning person? Should you be left alone until your second cup of coffee? Do you welcome walk-ins to break up the drudgery of the day, or do you despise being interrupted? Does your closed door mean don't knock unless the building's on fire, or go ahead and knock, you just wanted some quiet? In my own case, it was easy to write this section. After all, I wrote a best-selling book on time management and productivity. As much as possible, I try to do deep work in the mornings and meetings and calls in the afternoon. I don't like unplanned meetings and calls ever. Yeah, it sounds extreme, which is why I need to make sure everyone knows about it. It's nice to include a list of do's and don'ts. Now, as a variation of this section, to stick with the appliance design, I just called mine warnings and known defects. Finally, I included the results from my most recent 360 survey. Many managers are really uncomfortable with this idea of directly sharing their 360 results or employee engagement scores with their team. They don't want to admit where they're falling behind, or they don't want to appear fallible. And it is hard to hear constructive feedback from others. But there can be no great leadership, no great team performance without a foundation of trust. And vulnerability builds trust. If I share my weaknesses, if I share my developmental areas and my past failures, we'll be more likely to be honest and forthcoming with each other in the future. Creating my leadership user's manual was a powerful exercise. It reminded me of my own unique profile and catalyzed a conversation with my team about work styles and how we can all work together to maximize team outcomes. I encourage you to make one for yourself. You don't have to do a fancy layout, you can just use bullet points. And even if you don't share it with anyone, It's a good self-reflection exercise. But I hope you do decide to share it because it's a great way to reduce misunderstandings, to maximize communication, and a great way for you to model vulnerability on your team.